I never imagined that the day I'd dreamed of since childhood would turn into the darkest moment of my life. Standing at the altar inside Savannah's beautiful Emerson Hill Chapel, I wore the custom-designed wedding gown I'd chosen months earlier, carefully altered to conceal my 4-month pregnancy. The afternoon sun filtered gently through stained glass windows, painting soft patterns across the white chrysanthemums that Lorraine, my soon-to-be mother-in-law, had so thoughtfully arranged. Every detail seemed perfect, exactly as I'd imagined, but perfection is fragile, shattered effortlessly by a few venomous words. When Reverend Mitchell's calm, authoritative voice echoed through the chapel, asking if anyone had objections to our marriage, I instinctively turned my gaze to Caleb. He stood handsome and poised, his dark tuxedo perfectly tailored, the familiar sparkle in his blue eyes promising a lifetime of love and devotion. Then it happened. A voice, sharp and unmistakably cold, cut through the sacred silence like a blade. The child she's carrying is not my son's. 200 heads snapped around simultaneously, staring at the woman who had spoken. Lorraine Whitmore, the woman I'd grown to trust and even love, slowly rose from the front pew. Her gaze was ice, her posture rigid with an air of cruel triumph. Vivian Hale has betrayed my son, and I have the proof right here. With theatrical precision, she lifted a large manila envelope, its contents suddenly more threatening than any weapon. The chapel fell, deathly silent. Shock quickly turned into judgment, and all eyes settled on me, burning through me like fire. My heart raced painfully inside my chest, and I felt my unborn child kick gently, as if sensing the horror unfolding around us. Lorraine stepped confidently toward Caleb, placing the envelope into his trembling hands. Her voice dropped to a soft, poisonous whisper, loud enough for all to hear clearly. Caleb, look at these carefully and then decide for yourself. My fiancé, my best friend, the man I'd loved wholeheartedly for 5 incredible years, pulled the documents free. His eyes scanned the papers, color draining rapidly from his face. When he finally looked up, I didn't recognize the man standing before me. The warmth, trust, and affection were replaced by betrayal and disgust. Vivian, he said, barely audible, tell me it's not true. My voice caught painfully in my throat, the words desperate and broken. Caleb, please. I would never, you know me. But doubt had already taken root. Lorraine's carefully crafted lie had done its damage, burrowing deep into Caleb's heart. Without another word, he dropped the envelope to the ground, papers scattering at my feet, and turned his back on me. His groomsmen quickly followed suit, the rest of the guests rising from their seats, their whispers growing into a chorus of condemnation. Within seconds, I stood utterly alone at the altar, humiliated and broken. Through blurred vision, I caught sight of Lorraine, her pale lips curved into a subtle smile, a smile that would haunt me for years. In that instant, I saw clearly what I'd missed all along. She'd planned this betrayal meticulously, savoring the moment she would destroy me. Unable to bear the weight of their accusing eyes, I turned and fled, stumbling out of the chapel and into the garden. My veil snagged painfully on the thorny bushes lining the path, tearing away like the illusions I'd carried about love, family, and trust. But this wasn't the end, not yet. As my world fell apart around me, something new took root deep within my heart. 2 promises were born in that garden. First, I vowed to my unborn child that no matter what happened, I would protect and cherish them with every fiber of my being. And second, I swore to myself that someday, somehow, Lorraine would pay dearly for the lies that destroyed my happiness. My name is Vivian Hale, and this is the story of my revenge. If I'm being honest, our love story began in the most ordinary yet magical way possible, at an art gala in downtown Savannah on a cool September evening. I'd just launched a new digital marketing campaign for a local charity, and after weeks of sleepless nights, deadlines, and countless cups of coffee, I'd almost skipped the gala altogether. But something pulled me there, Fate, perhaps, or the hand of destiny guiding me toward Caleb Whitmore. He stood near the balcony overlooking the Savannah River, his posture relaxed, exuding quiet confidence. His dark hair caught the dim lights, and his laughter drifted effortlessly through the elegant crowd. When our eyes met, something shifted in me, something powerful and unfamiliar. "Beautiful night, isn't it?" he asked as I stepped closer, his voice deep and gentle. "It is," I replied, suddenly aware of my own racing heartbeat, "though I'd argue it's more stunning inside than out." He chuckled softly, extending his hand. "Caleb Whitmore." "Vivian Hale," I said, slipping my hand into his firm, warm grip. And from that simple handshake, my world changed forever. Our relationship bloomed swiftly but naturally. Caleb was unlike anyone I'd ever met. Kind-hearted, ambitious, genuine. He was an architect by profession, designing breathtaking buildings across Georgia, his creativity matching my passion for storytelling and digital strategy. Our worlds blended seamlessly, fueled by shared dreams and whispered conversations under southern stars. Within a few months, we became inseparable, sharing Sunday brunches at charming cafes, spontaneous trips to nearby beaches, and endless late-night talks on the porch of his family's historic Savannah home. Soon, he introduced me to Lorraine, his mother, the woman who would later bring devastation crashing into our lives. Initially, Lorraine was warm and inviting. Elegant, poised, always impeccably dressed, she embodied Southern charm at its finest. She'd invite me over for afternoon tea, sharing stories about Caleb's childhood adventures and proudly revealing family heirlooms. Over the months, I genuinely believed we'd formed a bond, a friendship grounded in mutual respect and affection. But everything shifted when I discovered I was pregnant. It was a warm April afternoon when I showed Caleb the pregnancy test. His eyes immediately filled with tears of joy, and he swung me around our small apartment, laughing and kissing me repeatedly. "We're going to be a family," he whispered, his eyes bright with happiness. We quickly moved the wedding date up, eager to welcome our child into a loving, stable home. Lorraine, however, reacted differently than I had expected. When we broke the news to her, she smiled. But there was something strained about the way her eyes lingered on my belly, something unsettling hidden beneath her congratulations. Soon after, Lorraine's demeanor began to change. Her innocent questions about my past relationships became oddly intrusive, probing gently but persistently into parts of my life I'd thought irrelevant. She started to appear unexpectedly at wedding planning meetings, subtly overruling my choices about flower arrangements, invitations, and even my wedding gown. At first, I rationalized her behavior, attributing it to the anxiety of becoming a grandmother for the first time or simple wedding stress. But looking back now, I realize I missed every red flag, every subtle hint that she was orchestrating something far darker than I could ever have imagined. In the weeks leading up to our wedding day, Lorraine's involvement intensified. She insisted on overseeing every detail, from the seating arrangements to the exact wording of the vows, carefully cataloging every aspect of our lives. At the time, I saw only a caring mother-in-law eager to ensure a perfect day. Little did I know, she was meticulously gathering every piece of information necessary to shatter my future at precisely the right moment. As I look back, haunted by what I failed to see, I understand that love can blind us, even to dangers that lie hidden in plain sight. Lorraine's intentions had always been there, carefully masked behind warm smiles and elegant Southern charm. And on my wedding day, her carefully concealed venom was finally unleashed, destroying everything I'd built in an instant. But Lorraine had underestimated one thing: my willingness to rise from the ashes and fight back. After the wedding day disaster, my life became a whirlwind of pain, whispers, and stares. Savannah's social circles thrived on gossip, and I'd become their latest scandal, the pregnant bride abandoned at the altar, labeled a liar and adulteress overnight. I secluded myself inside my parents' modest home just outside the city limits, hiding from curious eyes and judgmental glances. My wedding gown hung abandoned in the closet, stained at the hem from that humiliating escape through the chapel garden. Each night, as darkness blanketed Savannah, memories of Lorraine's cruel smile and Caleb's cold, empty gaze haunted my dreams. Weeks passed, blurring together into one continuous nightmare. I lost count of how many times I woke up praying it had all been a terrible dream, only to feel my growing belly and realize, once again, this was my painful reality. My parents, God bless them, did everything they could to comfort me. My father, a retired high school art teacher, transformed his beloved study into a nursery, painting the walls a gentle shade of sage green, a color he called the color of new beginnings. He meticulously painted tiny birds along the nursery walls, whispering quietly, "Birds are symbols of freedom, Vivian. One day, you'll feel that freedom again." My mother spent her evenings knitting blankets and tiny sweaters, filling our home with warmth and comfort. Even in my darkest hours, their love was an anchor, reminding me that my life, and my child's, still held meaning, despite Lorraine's efforts to destroy it. Determined to rebuild, I reached out to my former boss at Hale & Rise, the digital marketing firm I'd reluctantly left months earlier at Caleb's insistence. With trembling hands, I dialed Sandra Hale's number, hoping for a lifeline to regain some dignity and independence. When Sandra answered, her voice was gentle yet firm. "Vivian, we've missed your brilliance around here. Actually, I've been hoping you'd call. We're launching a new division, digital storytelling and strategic branding. You'd be perfect to lead it." For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of hope ignite within me. My old career had always given me confidence, purpose, and strength, qualities Lorraine could never steal. The months flew by as I threw myself into work, channeling my grief and anger into building something extraordinary. Each successful project, each satisfied client, slowly restored the confidence that Lorraine's betrayal had stolen from me. The cruel whispers of Savannah's society faded into background noise, replaced by praise and respect from peers who valued my skill, not my private tragedies. In October, on a crisp autumn morning, my son Elliot was born. As dawn painted gold and pink across the Savannah skyline, I held my baby in my arms, overwhelmed by a love fiercer than anything I'd ever known. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, his eyes wide and curious, as if recognizing instantly how deeply he was loved. Holding Elliot, I made another vow, a promise born from the protective heart of a mother who'd known unbearable pain. He would never suffer because of Lorraine's lies or Caleb's weakness. No matter the cost, I would shield him from their shadows. But promises are easier spoken than kept. 2 years later, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, fate brought Caleb crashing back into my life. Elliot had fallen during recess at preschool, needing stitches. As I rushed into Savannah Memorial's bustling emergency room, heart pounding with worry, I froze mid-step, eyes locked with Caleb Whitmore across the crowded waiting area. His gaze shifted quickly to Elliot, who sat in my arms, crying softly. Caleb's face paled instantly, recognition striking him with undeniable clarity. Elliot was his mirror image, the same sapphire eyes, dark curls, and expressive features. "Vivian," Caleb's voice cracked painfully as he approached, desperation and regret evident in his eyes. "Please, can we talk?" My instincts screamed to refuse, to protect Elliot from any further pain. But before I could answer, Elliot looked up at Caleb, wiping tears from his cheeks. With innocent curiosity, he asked, "Who are you?" The question hung heavily between us, the simple words holding power beyond comprehension. Caleb stared at his son, the depth of what he'd lost dawning painfully in his eyes. In that heartbeat, revenge became more than just a promise. It became a necessity, a reckoning not only for myself, but for Elliot. Lorraine had stolen years from us both, poisoning Caleb's mind with carefully orchestrated lies. And now, facing the truth standing before him in the form of an innocent child, Caleb had to bear witness to the devastation wrought by his blind trust. My journey back from the ashes had begun quietly, subtly, but now, standing face to face with Caleb, a fire roared inside me, fierce and unstoppable. Lorraine Whitmore would soon understand that every choice has consequences, and her cruelty would return to her tenfold. This was no longer merely survival. This was justice, slow, deliberate, and merciless. Caleb's eyes remained fixed on Elliot, disbelief and guilt mingling in their depths as reality settled heavily between us. "Who are you?" Elliot repeated, innocently breaking the silence, his tiny voice echoing the profound weight of that question. Caleb knelt slowly, lowering himself to Elliot's eye level, struggling to speak past the lump in his throat. I'm someone who knew your mom a long time ago." Elliot studied him carefully, the innocent scrutiny of a child. "Were you Mommy's friend?" "Yes," Caleb answered, his voice barely a whisper, eyes brimming with unshed tears. "A very good friend." My heart twisted painfully as I watched them interact. The son who'd never met his father, and the father who'd allowed himself to be robbed of precious years. Anger surged through me, white-hot and relentless. Caleb had made his choice, allowing Lorraine to poison his heart against me. And yet, standing here, he seemed broken, utterly lost. A nurse approached, gently interrupting our strained reunion. "Miss Hale, the doctor is ready to see Elliot." I nodded, grateful for the escape. "Come on, sweetheart," I whispered, lifting Elliot into my arms, deliberately avoiding Caleb's gaze. But he reached out, gently touching my arm, stopping me. "Vivian, please. I need to explain." I turned sharply, voice low but firm. "You've had years to explain, Caleb. You chose your mother's lies over me, over us. There's nothing left to say." His expression faltered, wounded by the cold truth of my words, but he didn't argue. Instead, he pressed a small card into my hand. "Just take this. If you ever decide to listen." Without another glance, I walked away, leaving him standing alone, haunted by choices he could never undo. That night, after Elliot was safely asleep, clutching his favorite stuffed penguin tightly to his chest, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at Caleb's business card. Emotions I'd long suppressed resurfaced, raw and painful. Anger, regret, a hollow ache of betrayal, but above all determination. Lorraine's lies had torn us apart, stolen Elliot's father from him, and stripped away years of our happiness. She would answer for that. My phone buzzed, shattering my thoughts. An unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Vivian Hale speaking. There was silence on the other, and before a weak, trembling voice spoke. "Vivian, it's Lorraine." My heart froze, my grip tightening around the phone. Anger surged instantly, burning through me. "How dare you call me?" I hissed, voice trembling with barely restrained fury. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she said quietly, her usually confident voice now frail and subdued. "But please, Vivian, just listen. I'm in the hospital. It's my heart. The doctors say I don't have long, and I can't go without confessing." I hesitated, torn between rage and curiosity. Lorraine had built her life on manipulation. Could this be yet another scheme? What confession, Lorraine? More lies. My voice dripped with bitterness. "No, not lies, Vivian. Not anymore." She paused, struggling for breath. "Everything that happened that day, the documents, the accusations, it was all a fabrication. I paid a lab technician to falsify paternity results, photographs, everything. You never betrayed Caleb. I was afraid of losing him to you." Her words hung in the air, painfully clear, painfully true. My hands shook uncontrollably. "And Caleb? Did he know?" "No," she whispered. "He never suspected. He trusted me blindly, and I took advantage of that trust to destroy you." Silence stretched between us, heavy with years of pain and unanswered questions. Finally, she spoke again, voice weak. I've written everything down, names, dates, payments. It's notarized. Caleb has a copy. Vivian, I know I can never undo what I've done. But please, let Elliot know the truth one day. Don't let him think his father willingly abandoned him. Tears blurred my vision, anger mingling with relief, grief, and vindication. Lorraine, why now? Why confess after all these years? Her answer was quiet, defeated. Because facing death teaches you clarity. I've lost Caleb already. I don't want to lose my grandson too, even if he never forgives me. He deserves the truth. You both do. I sat back, overwhelmed. I won't promise forgiveness. Not for myself, anyway. But I promise Elliot will know exactly what happened. Thank you, Lorraine whispered, voice fading. It's more than I deserve. After hanging up, I stared out into the night, the lights of Savannah glowing softly. Lorraine's confession had opened wounds deeper than before, but it had also given me the strength I needed. She'd finally shown weakness, vulnerability, a crack in her carefully constructed armor, and I intended to break that armor apart, piece by painful piece, because Lorraine Whitmore's confession didn't erase her sins, and forgiveness wasn't mine to give. But justice, true merciless justice, was mine to claim. Lorraine's confession haunted me through sleepless nights, echoing relentlessly until it solidified into a single thought: revenge. I'd spent 5 years imprisoned by her lies, carrying a burden of shame I never deserved. Caleb had abandoned me, my reputation was shattered, and worst of all, my innocent son had been robbed of his father. Lorraine's illness and belated remorse didn't absolve her from the agony she'd inflicted. She had confessed only out of fear of facing eternity burdened by her sins, not out of genuine compassion or repentance. No, she deserved no mercy from me. I decided the truth wouldn't quietly fade away. It would burn brightly for all to see. My plan formed quickly, guided by years of suppressed rage and sharpened by the clarity Lorraine's confession provided. I gathered every detail of her scheme, her signed confession, bank records of payments to the lab technician, emails detailing her manipulation. Every damning piece of evidence was carefully archived, ready to unleash at the perfect moment. But revenge, true revenge, isn't about immediate destruction. It's about timing, precision, and impact. 2 weeks later, Caleb showed up at my office unexpectedly. I hesitated briefly, then invited him in. He looked exhausted, dark circles etched beneath his eyes, shoulders burdened by guilt. I'm not expecting your forgiveness, he began softly, but I need you to know the truth. I never stopped loving you. Not for 1 minute. Lorraine was my mother, and I trusted her blindly. I was weak, Vivian. I failed you both. His voice shook, and I saw sincerity mingled with pain in his eyes. Part of me softened, but the stronger part remained guarded. You abandoned me, Caleb, I said quietly, my voice steady but cold. I spent years enduring whispers, stares, humiliation. Elliot grew up without his father because of your blind trust. He looked down, ashamed. I'll spend my life trying to make amends, if you'll let me. I studied him carefully, realizing this was the opening I needed. Caleb's regret could serve my plan perfectly. After all, Lorraine's greatest punishment would be witnessing her own son's rejection, the same pain she'd inflicted upon me. Fine, I said finally, but first, I need your help exposing your mother's lies. Caleb hesitated, clearly torn. Despite everything, loyalty still pulled at him. But slowly, determination replaced doubt. Whatever you need, Vivian. I owe it to you and to Elliot. Over the next days, we meticulously prepared our revenge. Caleb publicly cut all financial and social ties with Lorraine, distancing himself from her carefully crafted Savannah social circle. Questions quickly arose among their influential acquaintances, questions Lorraine desperately tried to suppress. Soon, Invitations stopped arriving at Lorraine's doorstep. Her cherished social status began to crumble, her once impeccable reputation stained with whispers of uncertainty. For a woman whose entire identity depended on control and influence, losing respect from Savannah's elite was devastating. Yet this was merely the first blow. Exactly 1 month after Lorraine's confession, Savannah hosted its annual gala, the same event where Caleb and I had first met. Everyone who mattered was present. Lorraine, despite declining health, appeared determined to maintain the illusion of composure. Caleb and I arrived together, heads held high. Whispers erupted instantly as we entered arm in arm, confident, unapologetic. Lorraine's face paled visibly, her perfectly crafted mask slipping momentarily. We made our way directly to her table. Caleb's voice remained steady, echoing across the stunned silence. "Mother, you've lied and manipulated long enough. Vivian and I aren't here to forgive or forget. We're here to finally reveal the truth." Lorraine's voice trembled weakly, eyes darting anxiously. "Caleb, please, not here." Ignoring her plea, Caleb turned to the crowd, who now watched intently. 5 years ago, Vivian Hale was wrongfully accused of betrayal. My mother fabricated evidence, paid for false paternity tests, and destroyed the lives of innocent people, simply because she feared losing control. Tonight, the truth will finally be heard. Murmurs erupted, growing louder. Lorraine's carefully constructed facade crumbled instantly, replaced by panic. I stepped forward, handing Caleb the notarized confession. He lifted it high for everyone to see, his voice clear, unwavering. "This confession details every lie Lorraine Whitmore told, every act of deception. This ends now." Lorraine shrank back, her eyes pleading, desperate. "Please, Caleb, Vivian, I beg you." I leaned close, voice calm but merciless. "You deserve no mercy. You took everything from me, from Elliot. Now watch as your lies take everything from you." As guests crowded around Caleb, eager to witness Lorraine's downfall, I stepped back, savoring the moment. Lorraine's once powerful presence collapsed under the weight of her own betrayal. Her control shattered completely, exposing her for what she truly was, a frightened, powerless woman who had destroyed herself through her own cruelty. Revenge isn't always loud or violent. Sometimes the sweetest revenge lies in simply holding up a mirror, forcing someone to finally see the monster they've become. Lorraine Whitmore now stood face to face with the consequences of her actions. Her punishment wasn't death, illness, or poverty. It was humiliation, loss of control, and the realization that her carefully orchestrated life had ended in ruin. And as I watched her crumble beneath the harsh judgment of Savannah's elite, I realized this was only the beginning. My revenge had begun, but it was far from over. In the weeks that followed Lorraine's public disgrace, Savannah buzzed with endless gossip. The queen of the city's social elite had fallen spectacularly, leaving behind nothing but shattered pride and exposed secrets. Newspapers eagerly ran sensational headlines, detailing Lorraine Whitmore's betrayal, manipulation, and ultimate humiliation. Yet, amid the chaos, I felt no satisfaction, only quiet, steady determination. This revenge had never been about glory or fame. It was about reclaiming dignity stolen from me, and justice for Elliot. Despite Lorraine's pleas for privacy, Caleb refused to shield her from the consequences she'd earned. He made good on his promise, publicly denouncing her actions and permanently severing his family's toxic ties. But the fallout wasn't easy for him. I watched Caleb struggle with the heavy truth. The mother he'd trusted implicitly had been his greatest betrayer. One evening, Caleb knocked quietly at my front door. Elliot was asleep, and the house felt still, peaceful, bathed in moonlight. When I opened the door, Caleb's weary expression spoke volumes. "I won't stay long," he began gently, sensing my caution. "I just needed to talk to you about Elliot, and about us." I nodded slowly, stepping aside. "Come in." We sat at the kitchen table where, just months earlier, I'd plotted revenge. Tonight, however, the atmosphere was softer, quieter, a space that allowed for honest conversation. Caleb spoke first, voice heavy with regret. I've missed so much of his life. I robbed him of having a father, and myself of knowing my son. Vivian, I know forgiveness might be impossible, but Elliot deserves better. I'd like your permission to try and build a relationship with him. I studied his face, seeing sincerity clearly reflected there, but my heart hesitated. Could I trust him again? Was Elliot ready to have a father? You can't erase 5 years overnight, Caleb. Elliot's happy. He's safe. The idea of opening his heart, only to be disappointed, is terrifying. Caleb nodded solemnly. I know, and I'll spend my life making sure he never feels that disappointment. I'm not the same man I was when I walked away. I've learned what blind loyalty cost me, what it cost all of us. His voice broke slightly. But I need a chance, Vivian. Not for myself, but for him. Elliot deserves a father who loves him fiercely, who fights for him, not abandons him. I closed my eyes, picturing Elliot's bright smile, his boundless curiosity, the way he lit up around anyone who showed him genuine care. Could I deny him the chance to have a relationship with Caleb, even if it meant risking heartbreak? Taking a slow breath, I finally spoke. We'll start slowly. Supervised visits. One step at a time. Elliot's needs come first, always. Caleb's relief was palpable, eyes filled with quiet gratitude. Thank you, Vivian. I won't let you or him down again. In the weeks that followed, Caleb held true to his promise. His visits were consistent, gentle, filled with patience and tenderness. Elliot warmed quickly to him, asking innocent questions about dinosaurs, spaceships, and why they both shared the same curly dark hair. Each interaction chipped away at the walls I'd built around my heart, slowly easing fears I'd carried for years. As Caleb rebuilt trust, Lorraine's condition worsened, her illness consuming her quickly. Yet, in a surprising turn, her isolation had sparked a change within her. She'd reached out again, this time humbly asking to see Elliot, not as a Whitmore heir or a pawn in her games, but simply as her grandson. Initially, I refused outright, my instinct to protect Elliot overpowering any sympathy for Lorraine's regrets. But Caleb gently persisted. She knows she won't be forgiven, but she's dying, Vivian. Maybe granting her this moment could help Elliot find peace when he's older. After careful consideration, I agreed to a brief, supervised meeting. We visited Lorraine's hospital room, sterile and cold, a stark contrast to the lavish mansion she'd once inhabited. Lorraine lay weakly in bed, humbled and vulnerable, barely recognizable as the woman who destroyed my wedding day. When Elliot entered hesitantly, clutching Caleb's hand tightly, Lorraine's eyes filled instantly with tears. "Oh, Elliot," she whispered softly, voice fragile. "You look just like your father." Elliot approached cautiously, offering her a small handmade card, a drawing of 3 birds holding wings tightly. "It's for you. Mommy says birds mean family." Lorraine trembled, clutching the card tightly. Tears streamed down her cheeks, remorse mingling openly with gratitude. Her gaze lifted toward me, silently pleading forgiveness she knew she wouldn't receive. Yet in that quiet, profound moment, revenge and bitterness lost their grip, replaced by something infinitely more powerful: hope. As we left, Elliot squeezed my hand gently. "Mommy, did I do good?" "You did perfect," I whispered, my heart aching with love and pride. That evening, after Elliot drifted into peaceful sleep, Caleb lingered at the door, hesitant yet hopeful. "We can't erase the past," I finally said softly, "but perhaps we can rebuild from it, stronger this time." Caleb smiled gently. That's all I could ever ask. Revenge had given me justice, but true healing came in moments of compassion, forgiveness, and the bravery to begin anew. Lorraine's sins had been punished, but real redemption lay in my choice to free myself and Elliot from the chains of bitterness and pain. Justice had been served. Now, redemption could finally begin. The months following Lorraine's emotional reunion with Elliot marked a quiet but profound turning point in our lives. Her illness, though relentless, became a catalyst for healing, not just for her, but for Caleb, Elliot, and especially for me. Lorraine's surgery was successful, giving her more time she no longer wasted on manipulation or control. Instead, she embraced therapy, confronting the destructive behaviors and insecurities that had driven her actions. She would never reclaim her old status or influence, but I sensed something more meaningful emerging from her new humility, genuine remorse. Gradually, Lorraine rebuilt trust, not through words, but through tangible actions. She insisted on funding Elliot's education, her intentions clear. This wasn't an attempt to buy forgiveness, but a genuine step toward making amends. Caleb, initially skeptical, recognized the sincerity behind his mother's gestures. Even I had to admit, cautiously, that Lorraine's transformation seemed authentic. Meanwhile, Caleb and Elliot bonded effortlessly. Saturday afternoons were soon filled with soccer practices, fishing trips, and visits to museums. Caleb's steady, unwavering presence became a source of stability Elliot thrived on. And though cautious at first, I found myself warming to Caleb's genuine devotion to our son. One sunny afternoon, Caleb invited us to his home, a place I'd once known intimately, but had avoided since the wedding disaster. Elliot dashed happily into the spacious yard, exploring flowers and climbing trees. Caleb watched him fondly, before turning to me with quiet determination. "I've missed seeing you here," he said gently. "You belong here, both of you." "Caleb, we can't pretend the past never happened," I replied softly, watching Elliot play. "Too much damage was done." He nodded thoughtfully. "I'm not asking to erase the past, Vivian. I'm asking to build something new, better, healthier. Lorraine's cruelty can't define our future. We have the power to write our own story." I glanced at Elliot, his laughter floating toward us on the gentle breeze. "Do you truly think it's possible?" Caleb stepped closer, his voice quiet yet unwavering. "If you're willing to try, I promise to spend every day proving to you that I've changed. The old Caleb, who trusted blindly, who turned away from you, is gone. You and Elliot taught me the true meaning of strength, of family." My heart raced at his sincerity. Years of pain couldn't vanish overnight, but the possibility of healing was undeniable. I'd spent years punishing myself, punishing Caleb, locked in a cycle of hurt and anger. But revenge had run its course, leaving only emptiness. What remained was the desire, stronger now than ever, to heal, forgive, and begin anew. I looked carefully at Caleb, seeing clearly for the first time the man he'd become, a man humbled by loss, strengthened by regret, wiser through hard lessons learned, a man worth a second chance. "Yes," I finally whispered, "let's build something new. For Elliot, for us." Caleb smiled gently, eyes bright with emotion. "Thank you, Vivian." As Elliot ran toward us, face flushed with excitement, Caleb scooped him up effortlessly, laughter filling the warm savanna air. For the first time in 5 years, our laughter joined his, unburdened by bitterness or pain. Later that evening, I sat beside Elliot in his cozy bedroom. As I tucked him in, he looked up at me thoughtfully. "Mommy, is Caleb staying forever now?" "Would you like that?" I asked gently. He nodded earnestly. "Yeah, I want a daddy every day, just like my friends at school." I brushed the curls from his forehead, feeling peace settle within me. "Then yes, sweetheart, I think Caleb's going to stay." Elliot smiled sleepily, eyes drifting shut. "Good. I'm glad we're like the birds in my drawing now, all together." As he fell asleep, I gazed at the framed picture he'd drawn months ago. 3 birds holding wings tightly, flying together through clear skies. Once a symbol of pain, it now represented a powerful truth. Family isn't defined by perfection, but by forgiveness, growth, and love. Downstairs, Caleb waited quietly, hopeful eyes meeting mine as I descended the stairs. "Everything okay?" he asked softly. I nodded, stepping into his embrace. "Better than okay. I think we finally found our way home." Outside, the savannah night was calm and peaceful. Lorraine's cruelty had once torn us apart, but her eventual remorse, Caleb's sincerity, and Elliot's unconditional love had allowed healing to begin. The past would never fully disappear, but it no longer held power over our future. Revenge had brought justice, but forgiveness had granted freedom. Our family had been broken, scattered by lies and betrayal, but like birds returning after a long, painful journey, we had found our way back to each other. Together, we could finally soar. As time passed, our new family dynamic took shape, quietly growing stronger with each passing day. We settled into a gentle rhythm, no longer overshadowed by the ghosts of past betrayals. Caleb and I navigated our renewed relationship carefully, never rushing, always respectful of wounds still healing. Yet each shared moment brought more trust, more closeness, slowly mending what had once seemed irreparably broken. Lorraine, still frail from her illness, but emotionally renewed, became a softer presence in our lives. While her actions could never be erased, I gradually accepted her sincere attempts at redemption. Caleb often accompanied Elliot to visit her, each meeting reinforcing the bond that had emerged from the ashes of bitter resentment. Over time, forgiveness became less an act of generosity and more a natural step toward personal freedom. One breezy Saturday afternoon, Lorraine requested to speak with me privately. Hesitantly, I visited her home, the once imposing mansion now a quieter, humbler place. Lorraine sat waiting by the window, wrapped warmly in a shawl, gazing pensively at Elliot's drawing of the birds framed lovingly on her mantel. "I never thanked you," she began softly, eyes glistening with sincere gratitude. "I never deserved the kindness you showed me." I remained quiet, gently taking the seat beside her. "It wasn't easy, Lorraine, and I didn't do it for you. I did it for Elliot. He deserved peace." She nodded slowly, accepting my honesty without offense. "I understand. And yet your strength, your compassion, it humbled me deeply. I spent years believing power and control defined success, but you showed me otherwise. You built a beautiful life for Elliot despite everything I did. Your capacity for forgiveness is something I'll never fully comprehend." Her voice cracked slightly. "I know I'll never undo what I did to you, but perhaps my mistakes weren't completely in vain, because they revealed a strength in you that I envy. You've taught me more than you'll ever know." For the first time, I saw Lorraine clearly, not as a cruel enemy, but as a woman broken by her own fears and insecurities, desperately seeking redemption. A woman who had finally recognized the consequences of her choices. "Lorraine," I said gently, "the past won't change, but what matters now is how we move forward. Caleb and I chose forgiveness, not because you earned it, but because we refused to let bitterness poison our future." Lorraine's eyes shone with quiet appreciation. "Thank you, Vivian. That alone is more than I ever deserved." In the following weeks, Lorraine continued therapy, confronting deeply rooted fears that had driven her destructive behavior. She remained a quiet presence, respectful of boundaries, grateful simply to witness Elliot's joyful childhood from afar. Caleb and I drew closer, trust growing naturally, built on shared experiences and mutual healing. On Elliot's 6th birthday, we gathered for a small celebration in the backyard. Lorraine attended, sitting comfortably in a shaded chair, joyfully watching Elliot chase butterflies across the lawn. Caleb approached me quietly, gently slipping his hand into mine, warmth radiating from his touch. "You know, I spent so many nights dreaming about a moment like this," he confessed softly. I thought I'd lost it forever. Lost you. Lost Elliot. But you didn't, I whispered reassuringly, leaning into him. We found our way back. Stronger, wiser, and better. Caleb smiled, his eyes warm. I won't ever take this second chance for granted, Vivian. You've given me everything. Later that evening, as twilight painted the sky with soft shades of gold and lavender, Elliot curled sleepily into my lap. He glanced thoughtfully at Lorraine, then back at me, innocent curiosity shining in his eyes. Mommy, he asked softly, are you still mad at Grandma Lorraine for what she did? I smiled gently, brushing dark curls from his forehead. Not anymore, sweetheart. People make mistakes, but sometimes those mistakes teach them how to become better. He considered this carefully, like when I spilled paint on the floor and learned to clean it up by myself. Exactly, I replied, warmth spreading through my chest. When we forgive, we give people a chance to fix what they've broken. Elliot nodded wisely, eyelids heavy with sleep. I'm glad we forgived her, because now we're all together like my birds. After he drifted to sleep, Caleb joined me on the porch, fingers intertwining comfortably. Silence stretched between us, peaceful and comforting, each breath filled with quiet gratitude for this hard-earned tranquility. You know, Caleb finally said, voice gentle, thoughtful, there's a kind of strength in forgiveness I never understood until now. You taught me that. I rested my head on his shoulder, breathing deeply, savoring the sweet calm. Forgiveness freed us all. Revenge brought justice, but forgiveness brought peace. Caleb squeezed my hand gently, and love brought us home. Above us, 3 birds flew gracefully across the evening sky, wings outstretched, perfectly aligned, just as Elliot had drawn them so many months earlier. In that quiet, profound moment, I finally understood the depth of our journey. Betrayal had nearly destroyed us. Revenge had helped restore justice. But it was forgiveness that healed our wounds, allowing us to reclaim joy and peace. Our story hadn't unfolded as I once imagined, but perhaps it was more beautiful precisely because of that. We'd lost everything, only to gain something infinitely more precious: peace, redemption, and a family built from the ashes of our pain. The path toward healing wasn't easy, nor was it ever linear. Yet each day brought small moments of grace, moments that gently stitched our broken family back together, transforming scars into powerful reminders of strength. Lorraine's health improved steadily, and with her newfound clarity came genuine efforts to repair what she'd fractured. The woman I once feared and resented gradually earned cautious respect through humility and quiet kindness. She never asked for forgiveness again. Instead, she spent her days proving she deserved it. Caleb, committed wholeheartedly to his role as a father, brought renewed joy into Elliot's life. Every bedtime story, every soccer practice, and every pancake breakfast chipped away at the shadows Lorraine's betrayal had cast over us. Caleb had become more than Elliot's father. He was now his friend, protector, and unwavering supporter. Our bond deepened as well, slowly evolving into something beautiful and resilient. Love, once shattered and seemingly irreparable, returned stronger and more profound. I found myself laughing freely again, unafraid of vulnerability. Caleb's quiet steadiness became my safe haven, reminding me daily that trust could indeed be rebuilt, brick by careful brick. On Christmas morning, we gathered quietly in our living room. Elliot squealed with delight as he tore wrapping paper from colorful boxes, revealing toys, books, and art supplies. Lorraine watched, eyes misty with emotion, her face softened by gratitude. Caleb squeezed my hand gently, warmth radiating between us, unspoken promises of a shared future now clearer than ever. Mommy, Daddy, Grandma, open mine now, Elliot announced proudly, handing each of us carefully wrapped gifts, each one bearing evidence of his artistic efforts. I unwrapped mine slowly, discovering a beautifully hand-painted picture. 3 birds, once again, soared gracefully across a watercolor sky, now joined by a 4th, smaller bird nestled protectively between them. That's us, Elliot explained eagerly, eyes bright with pride. Mommy, Daddy, Grandma Lorraine, and me in the middle because you keep me safe and love me no matter what. Lorraine's hands trembled slightly as she held her painting, visibly moved. Caleb's eyes glistened softly as he admired Elliot's heartfelt depiction of our rebuilt family. It's perfect, sweetheart, I whispered, heart swelling with pride and tenderness. Absolutely perfect. Later that afternoon, Lorraine approached me gently as Caleb played outside with Elliot in the yard, their laughter echoing joyfully. Vivian, I'll never be able to repay the kindness you've shown me, she began softly, sincerity bright in her eyes. Your forgiveness changed everything. I never expected to regain my family, especially after what I did. Lorraine, it was never just about forgiveness, I said gently. It was about choosing a different path, one free from anger and revenge. We chose peace, and in choosing peace, we found each other again. She nodded, a tear slipping quietly down her cheek. You've given me something precious, a second chance, and I promise I'll never waste it. I believed her. Lorraine had proven that true redemption was possible. The woman who once tore our family apart now stood as proof that healing could come from even the deepest wounds. As evening approached, Caleb joined me on the porch swing, gently pulling me close as Elliot chased fireflies through the yard, giggling happily beneath the twilight. You know, Caleb said thoughtfully, if someone had told me a year ago that we'd be here, happy together, at peace, I wouldn't have believed it. Neither would I admitted softly, but we found a way back. He pressed a gentle kiss to my temple, voice quiet and sincere. I'll spend the rest of my life making sure neither of you ever doubt me again. I smiled, feeling a deep, comforting certainty that his words were true. Our journey had been painful and complicated, marked by betrayal, revenge, justice, and finally forgiveness. But the outcome was worth every hardship we'd endured. As darkness gently wrapped around us, Elliot ran to the porch, breathless and smiling, holding something small in his hands. Look, I caught a firefly, he said excitedly, holding his cupped hands toward us. Should I let it go now? Yes, sweetheart, Caleb replied gently. Sometimes the best way to show we love something is by giving it freedom. Elliot carefully opened his hands, and the tiny insect fluttered upward, blinking softly as it disappeared into the night sky. That simple, beautiful moment became symbolic, a perfect reflection of our family's journey. We had been trapped by bitterness, held captive by lies and betrayal, but forgiveness had finally granted us freedom. Together, we'd risen from ashes, stronger and more connected than ever before. Our family had indeed been reborn, guided by compassion, anchored by love, and illuminated by forgiveness. There's a moment, quiet and unexpected, when you realize your story has changed. Not ended, not paused, but shifted. The pain no longer defines you. The past, though unforgettable, no longer has power over your future. And that moment feels like peace. For me, that moment came on an ordinary spring morning. Elliot was standing in front of his kindergarten class, proudly holding up his family tree project. His drawing was colorful, imperfect, full of charm. Stick figures labeled Mommy, Daddy, Grandma Lorraine, and himself, each with wild hair and wide smiles. Above them, 3 birds flew together, holding wings just like always. He cleared his throat, as seriously as a 6-year-old could, and began his presentation. This is my family. They're not perfect, but they love each other a lot, and that's all you really need. Simple. Pure. True. I looked over at Caleb, sitting beside me in the tiny plastic chairs that only schools seem to have. His hand found mine under the table. He didn't look at me, but I could see the pride in his eyes, the way his thumb gently traced circles over my knuckles. The same gesture he used to do years ago when we first fell in love told me everything I needed to know. We had made it, not because the pain disappeared, but because we chose to grow through it, not around it. After the class presentations, Elliot ran to us, arms outstretched. Caleb scooped him up, spinning him gently while Elliot laughed in that wholehearted, belly-deep way children do when they feel safe. Lorraine was waiting outside the school gates, cane in hand, her posture more frail these days, but her spirit stronger than ever. When Elliot ran to her, she opened her arms without hesitation, embracing him with all the gentleness she once withheld. I watched them from a distance, remembering the first time she'd held him, trembling, unsure, remorseful. Now there was only love. She caught my gaze over Elliot's shoulder and mouthed two words she'd said many times before, but which still carried weight. Thank you. Later that evening, we gathered in the backyard for dinner under string lights Caleb had put up himself. The air was warm, filled with the scent of roasted vegetables and laughter. Elliot darted between chairs, sharing pieces of trivia he'd learned in class, announcing he would be both an astronaut and an artist when he grew up. Why choose? I said, smiling. You can fly rockets and paint the stars. He beamed at that. Like the birds in my pictures. The framed artwork still hung in our hallway, the original 3 birds drawing and now several newer ones, each evolving, each more hopeful. One even had 5 birds, added just a few weeks ago after Elliot's cousin was born. This one's for our whole family, he'd told me, because it keeps growing when we take care of it. And he was right. Family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who show up, who take responsibility, who choose love, even after it's been tested. Caleb and I had once thought our story ended at that ruined altar. But in truth, that was only where it began. The wedding that never was became the catalyst for everything that followed, for transformation, healing, and the creation of something far more real than perfection. We never remarried officially, not because we didn't believe in the commitment, but because we realized the paperwork didn't matter. What mattered was how we showed up every day, with honesty, grace, and the courage to keep choosing each other. And we did. When I tuck Elliot in at night now, he always asks the same question. Are the birds still flying together? I always answer the same way, without hesitation. Yes, sweetheart, they are, and they always will. Because love doesn't always follow a straight line. Sometimes it takes the long way home. But when it's real, it always finds its way back. And this time we're flying together. For good.